I'm Deirdre Snyder. I'm on the executive board of the Oakland Education Association, and I marched with Martin Luther King in 1963, and I think we have to keep on working because we don't have equality yet.
And there's an effort to bring in more charter schools and privatization. What does that have to do with equality?
Because charter schools have no responsibility, no accountability, and they can work, but they're also they can be terrible. And it's an issue of privatization. Public schools are for everybody. And what's happening now is corporations are buying into the schools. They want to privatize them. They're not interested in citizens who can think critically. They're interested in making money for themselves. And I see what they're doing now is they are defunding the public schools. We don't have the resources we need to teach. We've got good teachers that are completely overloaded. And we need to take the money away from, if their corporations are going to give us money, we still get to say what happens with it. They can't buy public schools and then destroy them, but they make it so it's so hard for the schools to be functional. Then the parents think, oh, gee, I'll go to a charter school. And then the charter schools, they kick out any kid who's not doing well. So they don't want to get rid of public education entirely because they want to be able to dump any of the problems. But they do not offer public education. They do not offer special ed to special ed kids. They don't offer ELD for English language learners. They don't offer AP courses. They are not really interested in serving students. They're interested in making money.
Well, there's no real public oversight of charter schools.
Absolutely.
And do you think public money should be going to schools where there's a privately run board?
Absolutely not. I mean, it is the law. It passed. I think that has to be changed because there's no reason for us to be giving money to corporations.
Are you in favor of the repeal of the charter school laws? There's a repeal initiative?
Absolutely. I'm working on that, gathering signatures. Charter schools in Oakland are all in the flatlands, and they all have minority students. The white kids don't have to go to charter schools. They get good public schools. This is something seriously wrong. It's institutional racism. They're re-segregating the schools, and it's not right.
I'm Craig Gordon. I'm a teacher in the Oakland Public Schools. What MLK means for educators, what it means for our students is, the aspiration that's still far from being fulfilled for real equality, and we are really in a lot of ways further from it than we were the day he died in 1968, with an even wider chasm between, not only between black and white and racially, but in terms of rich and poor, and
You have 100 billionaires in California, yet education is suffering?
Yeah, and I think that what I'm really excited to see happening here today and in the last few years is like really a reclaiming in terms of a really militant, radical message that King had, not just what my students would be presented if all they saw was the textbook, which is sort of a very tame and very safe message that is presented, but rather the idea that we need to actually disrupt society, occupy Washington, D.C. as he wanted to do with a multiracial coalition to end poverty and to end basically, the system that enriches a few at the expense of the many. So that's what he was for. He was, strongly against war, imperialism, and capitalism, and that all fed into racism.
And what does charters have to do with MLK?
Charters? Well, charters...
Because actually they're getting black parents, they're appealing to the black and Latino community that they're going to get a proper education through charters.
Well, sure. Charters is, what charters has to do with this is that it's yet another attack by the private sector, by a false solution for the problems that the society creates. So while public education is being destroyed by corporate privatizers, by billionaires who suddenly are so concerned with the welfare of poor people and of black and brown students, they're saying, well, you need to here's your alternative, basically a private school that takes public dollars, but they compete with each other, and you can basically get into some type of a lottery system where you may or may not get into one that works well or doesn't. They don't work any better than public schools, even though they cherry pick students. But this again is a false solution. It's draining away the kind of tries to drain away people from those who would fight for the resources that we need to have truly high quality education for all students.
Are you supporting the repeal of charter school laws in California?
I do support the repeal of the charter school law in California. I mean, I think that there's no place for public money to be put into charter schools, and I don't think that should be written into our laws.
Well, I think the reason I think it's important that OEA is out here, as we are 100% a part of the Black and Latino communities of Oakland, and it's important to show solidarity in the face of state violence that plagues Black and Brown communities on a daily basis.
I'm Trish Quorum, president of the Oakland Education Association and second grade teacher.
And Trish, why don't you talk about the issues you face in MLK and the issue of what's happening with schools?
What Martin Luther King wanted was equality for all schools and have funding for all schools. What charter schools have done is take away the funding, distract people from what is really important, and what is really important is fully funding our public school system to provide a solid foundation for all students.
Who's behind this? The privatization, the attack on schools?
Well, there are many people that are for the privatization movement. Some feel that they have high motives of trying to support the most needy students. Others are in it for a profit motive because with real estate and cutting down on the costs of running a school and then giving that difference of cost to their funders, or doing real estate deals that line their pockets. And others just want a privatization system. They want a balkanized system so that the power of education is no longer the way for a democratic country to be run.
How is that affecting the children in Oakland that you're trying to represent?
Well, in Oakland, what has happened is that charter schools have taken away more and more revenue from the district. And currently there is a new plan to bring charter schools somehow into OUSD, even though OUSD has no control over charter schools. When Superintendent Wilson came to Oakland, he came with a plan from Denver that has also been tried in New Orleans, in Detroit, in DC. Do you see a theme in these cities? In the cities where they have destroyed public education, they are bringing this concept of common enrollment, where there is one application and all schools, whether they're publicly run and OUSD schools or privately managed charter schools, are in one application. What this is a high level of deceit and trying to fool the public into thinking that both charter schools and public schools are exactly the same, and they are not. They don't have the same transparency, accountability system, or democratic principles that should rule our public schools.
Do you think there's a problem of conflicts of interest and corruption with some of the charter school operators? I mean, it seems to be there are more and more incidents of conflicts of interest and profiteering.
Every day, every week, we see across the country indictments. We just saw the former superintendent of a Southern California district indicted for approving charter schools, and then all of a sudden, his company, his consulting company, is making millions off the charter schools as a consultant. These kind of deals are going through all the time, and even if they're not directly, even if people are not just corrupt and without any kind of conscience going after the money, when you mix these kinds of entities, when you mix private entity with public entity, it's a slippery road, and things do not go well for the public taxpayer.
And in California, you've got over 100 billionaires. You have tremendous wealth. Why are the public schools suffering?
Well, why are the public schools suffering is a question. Why do the billionaires, why does Walton want to contribute $1 billion over the next 5 years to convert and to grow the charter schools? Are they really concerned about the poor children? If they were concerned about the poor children, they wouldn't be closing the stores that employ their parents. It's okay if the parents starve as long as we have control over the children's schools. Is something wrong with this picture?
You're saying Walton family, which owns Walmart, is trying to take over the schools?
Well, I'm saying that they are part of the billionaire, the philanthro-capitalist movement that is, through philanthropy, trying to dictate how our public schools are run. And how they want them run is no unions, first and foremost, and working conditions that make for not a career teacher, but somebody that's going to do a gig for a couple of years before going on to their real job. And the philanthro-capitalists want it that way. They don't want people dedicated to either the schools or the students. They want people that will come in, feel good about doing missionary work for a couple of years, and then move on. Location is when a private charter school can move into available space at a public school campus. That's due to Proposition 39. There was language that was inserted that allowed that to happen. What it does is set up awful dynamics at a school site campus where two groups of students are really feeling conflict with the others. Even with the best teachers trying to prevent that kind of interaction, it is really not a healthy interaction at all.
Creating chaos in the education system? It seems like when they're taking over parts of a school, I mean, one school against another school, I mean, it sounds like it's chaotic.
So in Oakland, there is not co-location in the same building yet. They were almost going to do that at Westlake, and the pushback was so hard that they decided not to do that. But that is something that the philanthro-capitalists still want. The people that are in favor of charter school want to take over the taxpayer-paid public facilities for their own private use. I don't know if you've heard one of the last lines in the movie The Big Short, when one of the culprits said, "They'll just blame the teachers and the unions on this. We don't have to worry." And in fact, they did. This is what is happening all across the country, is if they can get you asking the wrong questions, they don't have to worry about the answers. It's all diversion, it's all distraction, it's all disruption, and that is their goal.
And technology, the idea of disrupting Uber, making everybody a gig worker, you think they have the same plan for teachers?
Absolutely, absolutely. They want people working just for scratch money, not saving, not being comfortable. They don't want any worker to be comfortable, because once a worker is comfortable, they might start questioning what's around them. They want everybody scared and scrambling. And this is something I thought of this morning. We have a lot of young teachers that aren't willing to stand up for their rights because they're scared. They are fearful for their jobs, they're fearful for retaliation, and that's why we need union protection, so that people are not fearful to do what's right for the students.
Was that what Martin Luther King was fighting for?
Okay, we're going to get to a theme. Martin Luther King was absolutely fighting for the right of people to speak their mind, to not be silent. When you are silent, that is when the oppression really comes to the forefront, and that's what he told people, don't be silent in the face of oppression.